Boy, the efficiency of you guys today. The Children's Safe Water Alliance started back in about 2002, and it was the key alliance brings lots of different concepts to our minds, but alliance in our sense is a organization that Rotary lead agency, but is not the owner. We acquire educational institutions, nonprofits, any willing to work with water. And that loose fitting but a mutual goal allows people to participate without feeling subservient. And particularly in the non-government NGO environment, NGOs don't work with NGOs. They don't like that. They're very autonomous. But anyway, that's part of the structure. The problem, water quality. The water issues are not just water quality, as you've heard today. We've got water access, water management on a larger scale, and water quality. Why would we just deal with water quality? I think if you've already kind of gathered from the speakers, the problem is huge. And just dealing with water in a country of 9 million people is a huge task, because we're talking about at least 50% of the Dominican population. So we're talking about roughly 1 million families. So just on the scope of the Dominican Republic, we're talking about at least 1 million families need some sort of water improvement in their homes. And that's pretty big for a dinky little country in the Caribbean. And then multiply that across the globe, and it becomes very significant. One of the things, look at the kids' faces here. These kids aren't really just posing. They're not unhappy children. They're just going to a fountain or a puddle and taking contaminated water back home. That's the sad part of this. These children aren't in school, and they're carrying contaminated water back to their home. Setting out, really what we found is that we needed to have an intervention process where the population, where a community would actually draw the technology down to them. One of the significant things is people are not drawing those technologies. And my suspicion is not principally on cost. It's frequently on accessibility, but most largely on lack of education. So our process in the Dominican Republic was to set up a course of instruction where community leaders would actually leave their community, come to a facility, and we would train them over a course of 2 days about water quality issues. And in this case, because we had a funding source for biosand filters, the technology that we had donors for, we would then, after the people went back to their community and developed their community, they would actually implement a biosand project. The blue dots represent where we've done projects in the Dominican Republic. We've installed about 14,800 of the concrete filters. That's 370 pounds of a tank and aggregate into nearly 15,000 homes in rural parts of the Dominican Republic. Every single province of the Dominican Republic now has some biosand filters, and roughly estimating, we have installed biosand filters in roughly 1% of the rural population of the Dominican Republic. So that's a pretty good size number, but it's only 1% of the rural population. And it was basically, we've used a broadcast methodology so that we could actually promote technology and consciousness across the general population. Observations. Well, two technologies that I really like are the biosand filter and the ceramic filter. They are effective and they're reasonably sustainable. That is, you could put it someplace and reasonably expect it to continue to work for some period of time. and people would continue to use that. That's sustainable. Once accepted, people love it. Now, when I say once accepted, actually most of the people out there in the world are actually not looking for technology today. They kind of accept what they have. But once they have it, they begin to realize how important it is to them. So the perceived value, again, recently I was in a Haitian bate in the Dominican Republic, and an elderly lady had received a biosyn filter about 8 months before. And when I talked to her, she was very, very ecstatic about the filter and what it did for her. But the funny thing, I said, well, would you sell me that filter? And she said, it's not for sale. I said, well, would you take equivalent in dollars, would you take $30 for it? And she said, no. Now, she probably has an income of about $30 a month, their entire family. And I said, would you take $60? She said, mister, it's not for sale. And I said, would you take $90? She said, I told you it's not for sale. The key is, when they implemented the project, they required everybody to pay about $5 per filter. And virtually no family wanted a filter at $5 initially. Through the education process, now 8 months later, the filter that was maybe worth $5 is now worth $90. That's key if we're going to become commercialize the technologies. We need to know things like that so that we can move forward. Again, we're talking about the demand. People aren't looking for it. And there's lots of skepticism. Most of the world's poor have been sold all sorts of contraptions and ideas and such in the form of like scams or things that didn't work. So we're always being challenged to convince people. And again, that's one of the reasons why our model uses a community facilitator, which is a leader within the community who's going to be the spark, because it's not an outsider selling. These are basically, we're talking about the behavioral. The behavioral challenges are one of the most significant challenges. Now, today, 2008, with technology, when I was a small boy, could put a man on the moon. And yet, the majority of the world's population do not have access to reasonably clean water. We're not talking about perfect water. That seems impossible. So what could be those significant things that are causing the world's population to die in the millions every year, and the solutions are actually at hand? Well, to legitimize point of use or household water treatment, there are basically no governments that have put a stamp of approval on any of these technologies. So we're going to need the scientific community and the governments, government agencies that work with other governments and all, to convince that the technologies that exist, which have been proven, the doctors were talking about the health impact studies, people's health actually get better, but these technologies are not, they're not certified in countries. Sometimes they lack that high standard that's been set, which may be accessible or it may not be. However, the health impact would prove that it is. So we need the scientific community to convince governments to certify and accept point-of-use treatment. Next, as we'd mentioned, the demand is not terribly great within large segments of the poor populations of the world. They're not actually out there looking for filters and things like that. Typically, if you'll go into a community, they'll talk about health in general. They'd like to have access to medicine, doctors. They would like to have jobs. They would like to have schools. If they don't have access to water, they would like access to water when they're walking 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers to get water. But actually, water quality frequently is not. Just realize the majority of mankind has never had access to water since he walked on 2 feet, and it continues to be that way. So it's just normally accepted that things are the way they are. So the demand is not that great, but there are, You know, the Coca-Cola will tell you they can sell anybody a Coca-Cola eventually, and they can do that. The marketing and the social studies and behavioral studies can make people do almost anything, particularly something that would be significantly beneficial to your health. I can't believe that you can't convince people of that. And we do that in our process. And that needs to be studied so it's more efficient, because you can't spend 100 hours on every person convincing them. We need to do it more efficiently. And thirdly is the simultaneous supply and access to the technologies, affordable technologies. I think ethically, if I convince all of you that you guys will die tomorrow because of some health issue, and I don't give you some solution, I'm probably not doing you a favor by telling you that. You might as well just live happy the rest of your lives, however short that might be. And the world's population, I think we owe them the same thing. If we don't have a solution for them, and we can't give them solutions, I don't think we should educate them and have them concerned about not having safe water if they can't do anything about it. So we need to have that supply chain in place simultaneously when we create the demand. Now, everybody plays a role in this. The governments have to be convinced that the point-of-use technologies are acceptable. The scientific community has to convince them. The scientific community needs to work with industries and implementers of projects so that we can get technology out there. We can also get technology improved and new technologies out there that are affordable. We have to have somebody to implement. We need a supply chain. And I think the social marketing, that is humanitarian donation of technologies to the poor, is a good way of promoting the technologies, makes us feel good, it helps the poorest people, and it also will begin to convince other people to purchase the technologies. And we'll need the technology to be commercialized if we move from the tens, hundreds of thousands to millions and billions of people. And of course, the population has the interaction with everybody. At the ceramic filter, let's say at roughly $20 and a biosand filter at $50, it really seems beyond me to believe that not every single family could have some sort of technology, for sure. It's within the price range of feasibility. And it seems a pity that those 6,000 children will die today. And it's absolutely not called for. And there are viable solutions. One of the cautions that I will say, and have witnessed and been probably a part of, both a recipient and probably a contributor, is what I call the technology wars. Now, if there's 1, 2, 3, 5 billion people out there, there's actually enough marketplace for everybody in the world to market their technologies, whether they're giving them away or selling them, whatever it is. The doubt that we've created in the minds of governments and individuals and the poor people, because of, if I tell somebody the ceramic filter is no good, then you have doubts about point-of-use water treatment. And when somebody else comes in and says, well, I've got a different filter, you have a doubt. And the NGOs have actually done a lot to damage one another over the past 10 years with the implementation and the different technologies. Any technology, whether how goofy it sounds, if it actually works and somebody wants to use that technology, fine. We need to have options out there. It's a lot easier to sell. You know, the Chevy dealer doesn't have one type of automobile sitting on his lot. If he did, he wouldn't sell very many cars. But the more options you put out there, the more likely people will actually purchase one of the technologies. And if they all work, I don't care if they use a soda bottle on their roof. If they think that's the best thing since sliced cheese, do that. It does work. Or if they take a ceramic filter. All the technologies have advantages and disadvantages, but they all do a pretty good job, at improving the health. So we need to get rid of the technology and implementation wars. The Alliance. Now, this isn't everybody that's participated in some way. Actually, the CDC has helped us with Danielle Latain. We've had lots of people from institutions, University of North Carolina, MIT. We've worked with the Clinton Foundation, AIDS, principally with AIDS, the Mira Foundation, AIDS, 17 different Rotary districts, over 200 Rotary clubs, 26 Dominican Rotary clubs. And nobody owns anything, but everybody is putting in something and contributing so that we can move forward and make strides forward. And the last slide is, and I've told, some of y'all know this story about this little girl who actually convinced me 6 years ago that the biosand filter was significant. A little 4-year-old girl with AIDS who got it from a blood transfusion. And I was thinking back just the other week, and I said, what do I want to say? Well, this little girl's mother started getting her water from the filter and quit buying bottled water and drank from the water from the filter. And her health got better. It's not a girl HIV, it's a little girl with AIDS. And her mother came and said, you know, Marisol's, she doesn't suffer continuously from intestinal infections. As soon as we started using the water out of the filter. Well, reading the scientific things, you know, that sounds good. When a little girl's mother comes to me and says, my daughter's better because of the water, and now having seen hundreds of people give that type of testimony, the filter works. Now, Dr. Sabsi was good enough to go out there and prove what we had seen previously. And these technologies work, and these things actually, you know, she's actually going to school. She didn't go to school when she was younger, but as her health has improved, now she goes to school. And she would never talk about her future before, because her future, although she didn't understand as a very small child what AIDS was, but she knew she wasn't like the rest of the children. She didn't go out there and play like the other children because she was always sick. But today, she goes to school and she plays, and she actually will talk about what she wants to do when she's an adult. Now, she may or may not become an adult, but the consequences of clean water and the steps that have come about have changed her life, and it will change millions of lives when people have access to safe water. And I thank you all for your attention.